So I have created this test suite plate. What it does, it will send out an email. We are creating a sample email form. And then it will send out an email to the recipient, which is mentioned here. Text file. Actually, I have this JS here, sorry. Text file. Okay, so now what it does. We are creating a sample email form. I think the logic we saw yesterday. This is a very small suite plate. What we are doing. We're creating an email form. We have added 3 fields. One is that one which is subject, second is recipient email, and third is a message. And then, on click of a submit button, it will send an email. So we're using Email Send API, where our author or the sender is the current user. Recipient is coming from this recipient email field. Then subject is also coming from this field, and message is also coming from this field. So in the get part, I think yesterday I had a different example. Today, let's take a comparatively easier one. So what we are doing. We're creating an email form. So again, same thing, form serve obj create form, the name is email form. Then we are adding a field. First is a text type field. Second is an email type field. There's a field data type called email. Then format field similarly. Again, we are making this as mandatory. This is also mandatory. Then, third is there's a field called message, and this is a text area field. Text area is like a free-form text, but it has a bigger. The field's length is higher. So it is a bigger space. It can contain a higher number of characters. And then at the end we have format submit button. We have added a submit button and the name we have given to the submit button is called send email. And then we have added a button called clear. Okay. Now this is done with the form creation. Now what we do at the end, once you create a field and form and everything, we do a context response write page. So, whatever is there, whatever you write or enter on the form, we are giving this to a response. We are writing it or we are writing sorry. In short term, we are sending this as a response for the post part basically. So here, when you write context response write page, we are writing that page information and it will go to the post part. Now from here. Then we have our post part starting. Till this, it was get. Now we have post. So in post what we are doing. We are getting the context request. The context request is the response which we have written on the form. We are getting it as a request on the post part. On request. We have request. So whatever fields we have created here on the post part, it will act like parameters. So how we achieve the field values. Let's say what you add here in the recipient email. Or in the subject field. Subject field. So how we capture it as request parameter subject. That was the name of the field. I mean ID, not name. The ID of the field right. Subject. Or maybe the variable? You consider this variable name? So request parameter subject will give us the field value for subject. Similarly, recipient and message. We retrieved all three, and then we used this email send API. By passing all three values here, recipient, subject, and message. The author, or which is like sender, is nothing but the user who is accessing the form. So through that user, employee ID, or user ID, we are sending that email. So we get it as runtime current user ID. Yeah, so now this is the script deployment. Like, I've created the script and deployment here. Okay. Now what happens is, script creation is same. In terms of deployment, you don't have to deploy it on a particular record because it is a SuiteLate. SuiteLate is not a record specifier. So we are basically creating a new custom form and page. So, in terms of deployment, you just select the status of release. Log label as debug and execute the role as administrator. Okay. As soon as you save it, you will have a URL generated here, which is nothing but the SuiteLate URL. I think we were discussing a few sessions back that the problem you had, and I just said that we can have a SuiteLate created to replicate the same form. And, if needed, we can make it available without login. So that option is here. We have this checkbox. If you check this checkbox, it will be available directly without any login. So anybody who has this URL can access it without logging into NetSuite. Okay. Sure, okay. Now, I got this URL here. Now, if I click on this URL, you will see, the form has opened. So where you have subject, we have three fields: subject, recipient, email, and message. Out of the subject and recipient email, these two fields, we made it as metadata. So you see the star symbol here. And what happens is, if you enter something here, let's say XYZ at the edge, email.com, and put some test map, which this is our test email. And when you click on send, it will send an email. Okay. So the URL right. Can this be called from a different web page where, yes, there is a button, yeah, that is, you can execute that URL? Correct. So that is what I was coming to here. You can add it into any section. Let's say, if I add it to advanced, let's put it on Classic Center. Now we have all these sections here. I'll put it under transactions. Category I will under transactions. Let me put it under sales. And then I'll call it as email information page. Okay. And then I add it here. Then I save it. Now, if you go to transaction sales, you see the last thing. Email information page. Yeah, but this is on the NetSuite side. But if we have to have on a different web page, totally not a NetSuite web page, on that dash. No, that is, or from a company. No, that is not something which is doable. So you can call it like you'll have the same URL only. You'll have this NetSuite piece added in the starting. So actually URL, if you want to call it, will become something like this. You have this entire piece and then this one. So let me put it somewhere here. Not there. Let me maybe put it here. So you have this. This is an instant NetSuite instance, name app Netsuite. That's the generic NetSuite URL. And then you have. This is the remaining URL. So you have app site hosting scriptlet. And then this is your script ID, and this is your deployment ID. That becomes. This becomes the complete URL. Okay. So now this can be called from any external dash. Yes, this can be called from any external system, considering if the person has an access. So I mean again the same thing.